Imagine for a second that it is the year 1788. You are living in the wealthiest, most culturally advanced nation on the European continent. Your military is untouchable. Your currency is the standard. You look at the history books and say, "We are too big to fail." 3 years later, your currency is worthless, your king is headless, and your streets are running with blood. Now, fast forward to 1913. You are a wealthy merchant in London. The sun never sets on your empire. The British pound is the only money that matters. 30 years later, your empire is bankrupt, your colonies are gone, and you are begging Washington for a loan. Now look at your phone. Look at the news. History is screaming a warning that we are refusing to hear. There is a specific mathematical pattern that has destroyed every single superpower for the last 2,000 years. It happens on a cycle. It has distinct stages. And the data shows, definitively, that America just entered the final phase. They call it the BIA, sovereign debt crisis. But that's just a polite way of saying, the end. And every single time, without fail, the citizens of the dying empire said the exact same thing. Quote, "We are different. They were wrong. And so are you." This isn't a conspiracy theory, this is a mechanism. To understand why your grocery bill is up 20% and why the housing market feels like a rigged casino, you have to meet the architect of this destruction. The villain isn't a person, it's a policy. It's the Fiat Trap. Here is how the mechanism works. When a great power rises, it starts with sound money, gold or silver. This creates trust. Trust creates trade. Trade creates wealth. But eventually, the society becomes lazy, entitled, and expensive. The government promises more than it can afford: wars, welfare, monuments. So, they face a choice: tell the truth and cut spending, or lie and print money. History proves they always choose the lie. They detach the currency from reality. This creates a temporary sugar high, a fake boom, where stocks go up and everyone feels rich. But it's a hallucination. The currency isn't growing, it's dying. Ray Dalio calls this the big debt cycle. The Romans called it debasement. We call it quantitative easing. The label changes, but the math does not. Let's look at the script history has written for us. Let's wind the clock back to the year 180 AD. The Roman Empire. The Pax Romana. The currency was the denarius. And it was the strongest money on earth because it was pure silver. Specifically, 95% pure silver under Emperor Augustus. This was stage 1, sound money. But then, Rome got greedy. The military budget exploded. The welfare state, the cura annone, or free grain, became politically untouchable. To pay for it, they didn't raise taxes, they clipped the coins. By the time of Emperor Nero, the silver content dropped to 90%. By Marcus Aurelius, 75%. This is the mezza, boiling frog, phase. The citizens didn't notice, because the face value remained the same. But then came the crisis. By 270 AD, under Claudius II Gothicus, the silver content of the denarius had plummeted to 0.05%. It was basically bronze dipped in silver wash. The result? Hyperinflation. Prices in Rome didn't just double, they rose by 15,000%. The government tried to fix it with price controls. The Edict on Maximum Prices, in 301 AD, threatening death to anyone who raised prices. It didn't work. The economy collapsed. Trade halted. And the mercenaries defending the borders stopped fighting because they were being paid in worthless trash. Rome fell not because of barbarians, but because they destroyed their own ledger. And the refrain echoed, quote, "They thought Rome was eternal." Fast forward to the Industrial Age. Weimar Germany, 1921. This is the most terrifying example because of the speed. Stage 1. The war debt. Germany owed 132 billion gold marks in reparations. Impossible to pay. So they entered stage 2, the printing press. In early 1921, the exchange rate was 60 marks to $1. Manageable. But the government kept printing to pay bills, thinking they could control the beast. By November 1923, $1 was worth 4.2 trillion marks. This is where the mechanism shifts from economic to psychological. It's called velocity of money. People realized the money was rotting, so they spent it the second they got it. A cup of coffee cost 5,000 marks at 10 a.m. and 8,000 marks by 10:30 a.m. Workers demanded to be paid twice a day, so they could rush to the shops. The middle class, doctors, lawyers, professors, saw their life savings, which could once buy a mansion, reduced to the price of a single loaf of bread. The societal contracts snapped. And what rose from the ashes of that financial collapse? A political extremism that burned the world down. They printed money to save the economy, but they destroyed the civilization. The refrain, quote, "They thought they were too modern for collapse." This is the most critical parallel for America today. The loss of carats, reserve currency status. For 100 years, the British pound sterling was the world's king. If you were trading tea in China or beef in Argentina, you used pounds. This gave Britain an exorbitant privilege. They could borrow in their own currency, but 2 world wars drained the bank. By 1945, Britain's debt-to-GDP ratio hit 260%. They were insolvent. But here is the twist. The United States didn't invade Britain to take over. We just bought their debt. In 1944, at the Bretton Woods Conference, the torch was passed. The dollar replaced the pound. The British Empire didn't end with a bang, but with a signature on a document. Britain entered a period of austerity, rationing, and decline that lasted 3 decades. They lost the Suez Canal, they lost India, and eventually, in 1976, they had to go hat-in-hand to the IMF for a bailout. A former hegemon, reduced to a beggar. Why? Because they abused the privilege of the printing press until the world found a better option. The refrain, "They thought the sun would never set." Now let's look at the American ledger. History says we are at stage 4, the wobble. The data is undeniable. The U.S. national debt is over $34.4 trillion. But the big number isn't the total, it's the interest. In 2024, the U.S. government will spend over $870 billion just on interest payments. That is more than we spend on national defense. We are spending more to service our past than to defend our future. That is the mathematical definition of a dying empire. Look at the debasement. Since 2020, we have printed nearly 40% of all U.S. dollars in existence. 40%. This caused the inflation you feel today. And just like Rome, with their price controls, our leaders are blaming corporate greed instead of the printing press. Just like Britain, our rivals, the BRICS nations, are actively building a system to bypass the dollar. They are buying gold at record rates. China added 225 tons of gold to their reserves in 2023 alone. Why? Because they know the pattern. They are preparing for the Bretton Woods of the 21st century. The escalation ladder is climbing. We went from economic trouble, 2008, to social division, 2020, to political weaponization, today. The next rung is existential. We are doing exactly what Rome did, exactly what Weimar did, exactly what Britain did. We are borrowing to maintain an illusion of prosperity. 3 empires. 3 collapses. 1 pattern. Rome diluted the silver. Weimar printed the paper. Britain borrowed the future. The United States is currently doing all 3 simultaneously. The refrain has been sung. Quote, "We are different. We have the military. We have the tech. It can't happen here." But the math doesn't care about your aircraft carriers. And it doesn't care about your feelings. The timeline suggests we aren't at the beginning of the end. We are in the middle of it. The question isn't, will it collapse? The question is, what will you own when it does? If you want to understand how to survive stage 6, you need to be paying attention to the signals the mainstream media is ignoring. I'm going to cover the specific assets that survive a reserve currency reset in the next video, so make sure you are subscribed. History is a script, and right now we are in the final act. Don't be the one holding the empty bag when the curtain falls.